Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Practicing Traditional Ways During a Pandemic. My name is BC Echohawk, and I'm a Communications Coordinator with the Native Connections TTA Center. On behalf of the Native Connections team and Contracting Officer Representatives Maureen Madison and Jan Dunbar Cooper, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. In a few moments, we'll start our presentation. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available in the near future. Because we are recording, all phone lines will be muted to minimize outside noise. Please don't hesitate to use the chat box for questions throughout the session. You can also use the raise hand function and we will call on you for comment. But first, opening us up in a good way is one of today's presenters, Yari Walker. Yari?
Igam si kayo vikam si kamaklut si tagil risi, yupiyustin ko nga at kayari, sibo kamang tingo nga sibo nga mang, ay maram kanang ko nga tawikaw. Good morning and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Yari and I'm originally from St. Lawrence Island from the village of Sivunga, which is located in the Bering Sea. So for opening in a good way today, I'm going to ask everybody to please pay attention and be connected to this whole entire event here today. And I want to remind everybody to put good thoughts and energy to this entire session here today. And when we start our day off, we want to make sure that we're putting good energy into everything that we're doing. So I'm going to ask everybody to do that today. And I want to sing a song to start us off today. And this song I like to sing when I do a form of prayer. It really makes me feel like I'm connected to my ancestors when I sing this song. And in one of my visions, my ancestors told me to keep singing my songs to stay healthy and strong. And this is the song I always sing, and that's the song that they want me to sing. Ya, 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 ya. Yang, yang, The new year has begun for my people. Springtime is the new year for us because the plants are blooming, the animals are coming, new things are coming, new resources. So it is the new year for us. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our facilitators. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is John Bird, and I am a member of the Blackfeet tribe from Montana. My Blackfoot name is Ponokapoka, Elk Child. I also have descendancy in the Haida tribe of Alaska. My maternal grandmother, my paternal grandmother, I'm sorry, my grandparents met at Carlisle Indian School in Pennsylvania, but my paternal grandmother was from Kasan. It's a Haida village, just right up from Ketchikan in Alaska. So I'm also a Sea Alaska shareholder and a member of the Tlingit and Haida Central Council of Alaska. So I'm really glad to be here. I'm a GTA, a grantee technical assistant, working with the Tribal Training and Technical Assistance Center. And so I have 7 Native Connections communities that I work with. So thank you. I'm going to turn it over to the other facilitator to introduce herself. Valerie.
Thank you, John. My name is Valerie Pingayak. I'm Chipik from the Kashunmit tribe in Chivak, Alaska. My Chipik name is Kasuk, and I'm named after my maternal grandmother. And I'm based in Fairbanks. I'm a grantee technical assistant, just like Jong, and I work with several communities throughout Alaska. In today's webinar, our objectives include a review of what research and SAMHSA say about culture as prevention. We will be spotlighting 2 Native Connections grantees who are implementing virtual, traditional, and cultural activities during a pandemic. And then we will give grantees an opportunity to share virtual, traditional, cultural activities within their own communities. Although we come from different geographical regions and cultures, we can still connect, find similarities, and relate to one another through the stories and lessons that we share. They have elements of spirituality, ties to the land, the preparation or gathering of traditional foods and medicinal resources around us, language, even the making or use of traditional clothing and tools, or through the sharing of traditional values and knowledge. Most importantly, we revere our youth, elders, families, and our communities as a whole. It is crucial that we take on the mindset that we are the culture bearers, and we have a responsibility to share and teach what we know today for future generations. We'll continue to pass on the ancient knowledge just as our ancestors did for us. We must act with purpose, never forgetting that during this time, we've already overcome several epidemics while remembering the lessons we learned. We have already adapted through our ever-changing environment, technology, while embracing our own cultural lifestyles and values in navigating through the Western influences. The elders always say, you're a stronger person if you know who you are and where you come from. At this time, it gives me great pleasure to share a digital story around traditional knowledge and practice that I worked on with my dad this summer when I went home for berry picking, or last summer. It was taught to my dad by his grandfather and the Chipik elders. My dad taught it to us while we were growing up at fish camp and berry camp, and I teach it to my own children, who will then share it with their own one day. It is called Driftwood. When we were putting this story together, he explained that this is not mine, but I am required to teach the new generation, just as his grandpa and the Chipik elders taught him.
John Pingaich is an elder from the village of Chivak, Alaska. He is a Chipik of the Kashimwe tribe and was an educator for 34 years. He is a carver, mask maker, has knowledge about cultural tools and ceremonies, Chipik beliefs and traditions, and is a composer of Chipik song and dance. He has shared his knowledge and wisdom all over Alaska.
Chipik elders insist that our people live healthy and strong in our environment. Every resource had an explanation for how it exists for our well-being. One of these resources is the driftwood. We were taught that the driftwood has consciousness just as humans do, that the wood has spirit and each piece knows what it will become. My late grandfather, Joe Friday, described the wood having lively conversations as they drifted across the oceans and the seas. Some say, I will be a spoon, a bowl, a harpoon, or a sled, or I'll be a kayak, or wood to build a house. Those that are going to be burned for steam baths, campfires, or for heating homes are set to express great joy and happiness as they will crackle and pop. As for the driftwood and its relation to wellness, there is a story about a man that was sick and not feeling well. A man would go out and turn over the driftwood he came across, especially the ones that were soaked with moisture and wet, even the ones that were rotting. My grandfather said to me, just imagine being that driftwood, lying on the tundra, but you could not turn over, even as you're tired of laying on one side of your body. Those driftwood cannot turn over when they want to. When a person takes the time to roll the driftwood over, it is as a prayer to the Creator or God for something they need for themselves. A man my grandfather spoke of turned over driftwood daily until his sickness was gone. When young people see elders turn over the driftwood today, they wonder why they are doing that. It is important for us to teach the youth about the things that help our ancestors through difficult times. That can still be applied today, even something as simple as turning over a driftwood.
John.
Thank you, Mark. At this time, I'll turn it over to John.
All right. Thank you, Valerie. That was an awesome story. I love listening to your father speak, and I love his story too. It's such a simple story, but very often those simple stories are the ones that are really the most powerful. And I was thinking about prevention, the work that we do around prevention, and prevention is kind of it's a difficult thing to describe, just like Valerie's dad was describing, the healing properties of driftwood and the action of helping them to roll over and complete their lives as a piece of driftwood is a really, it's just really powerful. But sometimes we struggle like thinking how to fit that into our work as prevention. But one of the things that really helped me is to kind of keep it simple and to define prevention in the way that it's defined here on this slide, that, prevention is really, and I've come to share this with the communities that I work with over the years, that prevention itself is really about decreasing risk factors while at the same time you're increasing protective factors. So if you want to go on to the next slide, Mark, SAMHSA has known for a long time that culture is prevention, that the protective factors that are associated with culture, like when Valerie's dad was saying, we have to teach this to our children, and our grandchildren. I love the scene where his grandchildren were watching him and Valerie do the driftwood or do the whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's picking berries or whether whatever cultural activity it is that they were looking, they're always watching, and they want to know why do we do that. But that SAMHSA has known for a long time that culture really strengthens strengthens people's personal wellness, helps give them a positive self-image, helps their self-efficacy, and things like that. And it really gives them confidence. I know when I started to really focus on learning more about my cultural identity from a really aware position of awareness. I think when we're younger, we just live in it. But then when we get older, we come to this place in Blackfoot, we call that kakiosin, where we become aware of the things that we want to learn. And for me, the things that I wanted to learn in my early adulthood, young adulthood, were things that I thought would help me. And so I dug deeply into the Blackfoot culture, into the language, into the ceremonies and things like that. When I was around 25 years old, I think I really started digging into that as an adult. And I really became connected to the culture, which gave me a much stronger sense of who I am culturally. So the things that SAMHSA has always talked about is that, if we can take those protective factors, I think I had an innate sense of what kinds of things I wanted to learn. I didn't specifically know that I wanted that the sweat lodge would be one of the things that helped me the most when I was 25 years old, but it did. And I found it pretty quickly when I went back home from college. And so, culture is prevention. It's the things that provide protection for us from all the risk factors that are out there. So if you go to the next slide, Mark, I think that, we have some concerns about things that we might call research. There have been just a lot of unethical things that were done. I mean, many of you might have heard about a study that was done here in Arizona with the Havasupai people who, because they live way down at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, they have a genetic pool that's kind of different in some ways than some of the other native tribes that live in Arizona. Anyway, the University of Arizona partnered with them on a study, and then they told them that it was about diabetes, but then they used their blood to test for all kinds of other genetic markers that they wanted to learn more about from people who had been living in an isolated situation for a long time. And they did it without the permission of the tribe. They kind of, and they got caught, and it was a big issue down here in Arizona where I live. And but sometimes, sometimes research can become abusive in communities. And so that's why a lot of our native communities, they're really focusing more on like strength-based models of prevention, strength-based models of research. And so some of those strength-based activities include a lot of our traditional activities. And Valerie was talking about some of those things and all of these things I've seen Native Connections programs do them, and many others I might add that I would add to this, but really focusing on strength-based activities like cooking, gathering, growing, and storing of traditional foods, traditional storytelling, games, language programs, so like our struggle has during the last year has been, how do we do these things that we always do? And we've always been able to bring our youth together during summer youth camps and things like this, and bring our elders in and talk to, and have some face-to-face learnings. But this year it just didn't happen. And so we're really thinking about, how do we do these things in a virtual way that's safe in these times of COVID. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I just want to mention one thing that where I'm from in Montana, even though I'm not living there right now, I keep in touch there. I'm related to many people there, and one of my relatives is, her name's Carla Bird. She's the president of Blackfeet Community College, and so she organized this language program that was virtual, and she promoted it all over on the reservation and opened it up, and it was free for anybody to attend. And they meet twice a week for 2 hours each time, and they've had like 350 people on every one of their sessions on Blackfeet language, and it's just really awesome, you know. And so I just wanted to point out, you know, that was one of the things that I seen during the epidemic or the pandemic that really helped to strengthen people and help to move people to a different place, a place where you might be. What I notice when I listen to the Blackfeet language classes is because they don't just translate the words from Blackfoot into English. You know, one of the things that they say is that when you do a side-by-side translation like that, you lose a lot in translation. And so the elders that are teaching the language, they go back and they talk about the word, the meaning of the word back in what we would call the old way of speaking the language, you know, before we learned how to match things up with the English language, you know. I think now that we're kind of trying to get away from that, at least at Blackfeet get away from matching Blackfeet words to English words, and that's how we use, because then we end up speaking kind of a English version of Blackfeet, and it loses a lot in the translation. And so I really appreciate that these people that are teaching the language there, they teach the background of the language, and that really gives you a lot more background into the meaning of the word, into the worldview of the language, and the way that the worldview looks at the world. I mean, which of course worldview means, but that is something that really strengthens me. It's like, wow, you know, our worldview is very different, and I really appreciate the way that our ancestors viewed the world. So with that, I just want to turn it over. We have two spotlight grantees that are going to present with us today, and so I want to start off by just turning it over to the Zuni Youth Enrichment Project. They are a Native Connections program that is based in Northwest New Mexico at Zuni Pueblo. And they've been around for a while, and they've really done some good work on turning some of their traditional activities that they would do in the community on a yearly basis, kind of according to their ceremonial calendar, but they've taken some of those activities and they've figured out a way to make them virtual. And so I'm going to have them share their project with you. I'm going to turn it over to Talia Natachu, who's the project director, and she can get us started and introduce the rest of her team there. Talia, take it away.
All right, Elako John. So we're very, very happy to be here, and I'm going to invite Tiana and Keith to jump on with me, and we're just going to introduce ourselves really, really quickly.
Keshikot Dantewanan Ade, Hot Tiana Kachan election, or Kulikin asked them, Sakulias that they be quakia, Hot Gageli Kodean, Anshekwa Awan Chatle, and Hot the Zuni Youth Enrichment Project and Equanigea. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Tiana Kachani. My clients are Eagle and Child of a Bear. I am 22 years old, and I work with the Zuni Youth Enrichment Project.
Okay. Ela Kotiana. Koton. Whoa. Sorry, dropped everything. Koton lagi tikanawe. Hotali nada chile shina ho takia kotan yatokia koawan chale. My name is Talia Nadachu, and I am the Youth Development Coordinator for ZYEP.
Hello, Kotalia. My name is Kifidaki. I'm a local artist here in the community of Zuni, and have worked with the Zuni Youth Enrichment Project on many numerous projects, and was one of the leaders as far as the project that we're going to present today. Thank you, Philip.
All righty, so I'm going to figure out, this is the first time that I've ever been able to control a screen from this in this way, so bear with me. Again, elakwa for having all of us here and to be able to share our story. Really appreciate the way that Yari, you opened up in a very beautiful way, and how everyone kind of just set the platform. So feeling very blessed to have this opportunity to share. Okay. All right, so we are the Zuni Youth Enrichment Project, and we're going to be talking specifically about our oral history theater project, also known as Delapnawe. So ZYEP is located in Zuni, New Mexico. We're Native Connections Cohort 4. And our 501(c) nonprofit was founded back in 2009, 2010. There's some debate, but basically it came from, one of the pediatricians at the IHS hospital. They had their client or their patients come in, and they're asking the youth, like, what are you doing this summer? What are you doing this summer? And many of the youth just said, oh, nothing. And that's when it was decided amongst a lot of community leaders that we need to provide enriching activities for our youth so that they grow into strong, resilient, healthy adults who are connected to their Zuni culture and traditions, because just like John was talking about, culture is prevention. And when our youth are connected to their culture, they can do anything. And so fast forward to today, that is our facility there. We have a actual space, Holtnawan Park, that means park belonging to all of us. And so that is kind of the center of everything. We serve about 500 youth on a normal, in a typical year, we'll serve about 500 youth through different programs like sports leagues and our annual summer camp and art apprenticeships, agriculture internships. We work in the school, and most recently we have this oral history theater project that we're doing. And so, yeah, those are the different ways that we're reaching out to youth. During this time of COVID, we couldn't have our gatherings, and so we've kind of adapted to also giving wellness kits out, wellness kits that kind of encompass holistic health. So different kits would involve mental health, physical health, nutritional health, all spiritual health, cultural health, everything. And so we would distribute those kits in a safe way. So we were still making that contact with youth, but we were still really missing that interaction. And so in the next slide here, our oral history theater project, it's our newest kind of project that we've launched. This was our third year. We just completed our third year, and we wanted to focus on Delapnawe, which are traditional oral stories that were told for entertainment and to teach lessons. And we had storytellers in our community that this was like their job. People would call them over and they would tell stories, and it was a way for families to come together. And back in the 1960s, Doris Duke, who was a philanthropist, invested a lot of money into the Southwest tribes for them to figure out, how do we want to use this money to preserve our culture? And Zuni was able to record their storytellers. They got over 400 hours of different Delapnawe recorded, and Zuni got to keep that and do with it what they wanted. And so through a long process, it's kind of been rediscovered in a way back in 2018. And so these recordings are being taken care of and trying to be shared through various people in our tribe. But somebody, Curtis Quam, who is a leader at our Oshawi Awa Museum and Heritage Center, he wanted to introduce these recordings and share them with youth. And he was doing that through classroom presentations, but he knew that it could be more. And so he approached ZYEP and was like, how can we get youth involved and learn about these things? And so then he also was like, let's do it through theater. And so we all gathered community partners and leaders of all different like platforms and figured out how to do this. And I'm going to turn it over to Keith, who has been our director and our leader these past 3 years.
Yeah, thanks. I remember in 2018 when we were brainstorming as far as, how we can produce and showcase these stories to our community. We all met at local restaurants, and I remember community members being invited, certain programs invited who have a big part in providing services to our youth. We all kind of came together and just kind of brainstorm ideas of, how can we showcase these stories to our community? Traditionally, a storyteller would come into your home and share these stories, and that would basically be it. And so we wanted to kind of go with the same thing, but also present it in a way to where it would kind of, anyway, so what I was saying, that we brought a whole group of people together and came up with an idea of presenting these stories in a unique way. And we basically came up with the idea of creating a stage performance. And once we started having these ideas, we started taking those steps of what do we need to do to bring this to life. And I remember that time, Joe Conch, who is the director of the program, came up to me and asked me, hey, do you mind if you lead this program and assist the members and which way to go? And so I said, yeah, I'll do it. And then when I got home, and it's all like, what did I get myself into? I don't even know a thing about theater or putting on a performance. But luckily, one of the good things about ZYEP is they have a really good way of bringing people together. And so that's what they did. We brought a good core group of people who had different skill sets, different talents that we could utilize. And all of the cast members, all of the stage crew, all of the production teams were actually community members who volunteered their time to help this production to come to life. And we just actually finished our third annual production this past February.
Okay.
So as we were moving on with the third year, once we finished the second year, I think we kind of figured out the kinks of putting on a production. And so the second year, I think we really got some things down. And so we were really gearing up for a third year. So like, okay, next year we can do this and we can do that to get this production really going. And then all of a sudden in March is when we started getting hit with the pandemic. And then everything just kind of started shutting down. And when the storytelling season came around, we really couldn't provide the same services we did the years before. And so we really had to sit down and think, are we able to present something to our kids, to our community, or do we just forgo this year and not really do much? And so I think one of the big push amongst all of us is that we really got the ball rolling. We really don't want to stop. I'm pretty sure we can figure out ways to adapt and present this theater project to our community again. And so we really came down and thought of ideas. And a lot of it was, are we able to do this virtually? And so I think one of the things that was really key for us is that all of our kids during that time were going through virtual learning. So the school district actually provided either iPads or laptops to each student and internet connection, so that way they can attend classes online at home. And so we were able to utilize those technology, and we came up with the idea of creating an animation project that we can do virtually over Zoom. So all of the things that we did was done through a Zoom meeting. One of the things we wanted to showcase and really show during this production is we have a family scene that we portray in our storytelling. And one of the things we wanted to do is, to share that message of staying safe and taking care of one another during that pandemic. And so one of the things we did, we wanted to frame up key events that are happening in our community in the script that we wrote. And so a lot of the script writing involved, how to deal with the pandemic, what precautions we needed to take, and also figuring out ways to still stay connected with community members in this skit that we put up. And so hopefully that message, transcends into our community, that even though it's kind of hard not seeing one another in person, that we did want to share that message of staying safe during this time. And so a lot of the script writing, we wanted to include events and things that we now see today. And so it was kind of interesting. Well, a lot of the script is really humorous. So what we had is we had our elderly members trying to log into Zoom. And, those are some of the things that we kind of see is I actually took my family, my mom and dad, who are not necessarily elderly, but a little bit computer illiterate. So I could see them struggling to get onto Zoom, and I could see this happening with a lot of our family members. So we wanted to kind of showcase some of the things that we see every day and make it humorous, but also to share that message of staying safe during this pandemic. And so, like I said, everything was done through Zoom. We had a group of artists come together, and they actually used their drawings and created animations using a program called Adobe Animate. And they actually created a full-length animation project for this storytelling. When that was done, all the voiceovers were recorded through Zoom. So we had the kids come onto our Zoom call. We practiced lines with them. We taught them different things as far as changing their voices and teaching them the language and pronouncing certain words correctly. And then all of that was recorded and created. And once we compiled all of those were presented to our community over the internet. And so it was really interesting. It was definitely something to adjust to. Like I said, our third year, we were really anticipating taking additional steps to make our stage productions really, really over the top. But once we encountered the pandemic, we had to really step back and say, hey, what do we need to do? And so I think a lot of these things we're just adapting and adjusting and figuring out in creative ways, how can we still do these things over the internet? How can we do this to keep that interest of storytelling going? And I think it's really done some really good, a lot of good for our community. We started our theater project in 2018. Come to this year, 2020, we've actually had not only our program present as traditional storytelling night, but we've seen a lot of other programs, also do the same thing, which is really good for us because, we can only do so much, but if the whole community is doing the same thing, then that gives more exposure to our youth, and it also creates a lot of that connections to our community. And so everything was done over Zoom, but if there were certain things that needed to be delivered, ZYEP was able to do that in a safe manner.
Right, so moving on to the timeline of the events, everything of course started off even before the script writing. We had to start off with some brainstorming, and that took quite a bit of time. As Keith mentioned, the pandemic hit, and so we started this project rather early. I believe we started in October, towards the beginning of November. And we began brainstorming, how are we going to do this? Is this even going to happen? And some things were thrown out there. We threw out animation, we threw out some claymation, we also threw out ideas of using the Zoom green screens. And so Eventually, we settled on doing an animation, and I think from there we were able to develop the script. And Keith was a really, really, really big role in writing that script. And so, with Keith's help, you know, the whole script came together, and it, as he mentioned, uh, included a family scene and then also the story itself. So we had two different components, and we had to work with two different groups. But in those groups, we also had two separate stories in the production. So we had a family scene, story one, and story two, and so we were working with these different groups. And you know, once we had everything written down, script ready to go, we had to figure out how we were going to register, how we were going to do this in a virtual manner, and also staying safe. And so we utilized Google Forms to do the registration, and Google Forms was a really big help. It's free to everyone, and so we were able to use Google Forms to get our participants registered. And then from there, I myself have a background in performing arts. I went to a performing arts high school and middle school, so I graduated with some knowledge on dance, choir, and also theater. And due to my background, I was actually able to throw together an entire theater camp for our participants. So the theater camp kind of taught the youth and the participants how to change their voice for animation, how to take care of their voice, how to showcase emotions and bring out different emotions. And not only that, we also taught some lessons on the Zuni language and how we could use that more in the script itself. And so I think that was a big, really big confidence boost for all of our participants in terms of actually using the language, because we know a lot of them hear the language every day and everywhere they go. It just comes down to how much are they willing to put out there in front of everybody. And so with the theater camp, we were able to build their confidence. Even before we started our rehearsals, they were able to build the confidence in speaking our language a whole lot more than they have in the past years. So that was pretty awesome. So from theater camp, we moved on to different rehearsals, and the rehearsals, of course, came with learning the script. So we had the participants, you know, dry run through their lines, gave them roles. It was super fun, super exciting for our participants to get to take on an entire different person than who they are. And of course, they played characters such as like coyotes and badgers and little rodents for our stories. And so that was pretty cute. But yeah, so I think again, the theater camp helped to build up those rehearsals, and we were able to meet with them in the evenings to kind of steer away from, you know, getting involved with like the school day and the work hours. So rehearsals were a big part of building up everything. Um, so again, the art team from there were able to get a feel for, you know, how to animate these characters based on what the participants were putting out. So the art team actually went in and used concept art from the elementary school, because we teach a little program in there for the theater portion too. They were able to take that concept art from the students at the elementary school and develop these animations from their art. So again, community-based, community-led. We had our youth developing the concepts for these characters that were then animated for the community to see. Um, as Keith mentioned, we did use a lot of Zoom. There were many, many, many Zoom meetings. I think after that, we are all Zoom experts now. But we had to record every single scene and every single voiceover on Zoom. And I just would like to give a quick shout out to a little team in our community called Shewi Sun Productions. They were the ones who were able to actually record the scenes and record, I guess, through Zoom, and use those to kind of throw together all these awesome scenes in each of the animations. And then the family scene, which of course showed like a Zoom picture. So that was pretty cool. Also, they were able to use Zoom to develop some sort of like infomercials and PSAs to the community that were being played before and before the production was aired, just kind of, you know, telling the community to stay safe, to continue to mask up, different things like that, to also provide that for our community, just as, you know, a reminder to stay safe during this time. And so that was definitely something different, I think, for everyone, but it was awesome to see in the end. But yeah, so the tech crew, again, Shui Sun Productions, they were the ones who threw everything together, created and edited every single video, every single animation thrown together to create this giant production, which ended up being, I believe, like an hour and a half long, which was something we were not expecting. We were, you know, shooting for, you know, 45 minutes at the least, and we came out with this entire movie almost. So that was pretty amazing for our tech crew and everyone involved. Um, but again, as both Keith and Talia mentioned, this type of storytelling, telap nawa, is only done during a specific time of the year, and that is the winter time. So we had that barrier of how are we going to do this without exploiting our own traditional ways too much. We didn't want this to end up being something that, you know, we wanted to share this with, you know, everyone, but we mainly wanted to share this with the community because this is something that you know, we tend to kind of keep in our community almost. And so we were trying to figure out how to do some culturally sensitive and safe showing. So we threw out ideas such as, you know, posting it on YouTube, keeping it on private so that only people can view it. We brainstormed, you know, what if we just live stream somewhere? And we ended up doing a Facebook premiere. So that's how we ended up posting our video. Our production was through Facebook, and it only allowed for the premiere to happen once, and it was not recorded. We made sure that we put some PSAs in there about not recording and why we don't want this to be recorded or for anybody to take video of the production, because again, this is a traditional storytelling method, and this is something that we wanted to kind of keep in our community. So we kept it very safe for our production to be put out there. There was, again, no recording, and we had to make sure that everyone was following the guidelines. So that was awesome. But yeah, so at the end of everything, we had our reflection period after the premiere, and we came together as a group, the production team, the participants, everyone came together to, you know, reflect on what had just happened. Again, we didn't expect this to be such a huge project, but it came out to be this amazing thing. So we talked about, you know, things that we can improve on for future productions. We talked about the best things that happened, and we also talked about how we can do things bigger and better next time. So that's what the whole reflection encompassed, and so that was pretty fun. Talia, I will hand it back to you. Oh, no, just kidding. It's still me. All right. So our highlights, being able to provide this opportunity for the participants to connect with one another was something that we really wanted to nail down. You know, in past years, being able to be together as one crew in one space was, you know, I guess it helped our mental health. And so we wanted to be able to provide this to the participants, um, even through this pandemic, because we know how much it impacts the youth. We know how much it impacts, you know, the people who are participating in the production. So we wanted to really make sure that we made this possible, and it was thanks to everyone in the production crew and all their amazing ideas that we were able to provide this for the participants once again, but also providing, you know, a positive light in this whole pandemic for the community, especially during this challenging time. You know, I'm pretty sure you all can relate with losing community members and well-known people within your community. It's been challenging, it's been tough, and so we wanted to provide a sense of positivity for our people. And so being able to promote this through Facebook, we were able to bring in a lot of our community members, and we got a ton of positive feedback from our community members saying that, you know, this is something that we were really looking forward to, and we got to see it, and how this thing kind of, our whole production kind of provided that positivity in their households, because we added some humor in there, we added some, you know, relatable things in terms of the pandemic. And so everyone in the community was able to relate, and a lot of our Zuni language was utilized, and so they were able to, you know, even the elders were able to, you know, watch and understand and kind of laugh with all of us. So it was a positive thing for not only our participants, but for also the entire community. But yes, the youth learned about the traditional art form of storytelling. As we mentioned, you know, this thing has kind of died down in terms of like how traditional it is in the past. Like Talia mentioned, these people would go out to different homes and tell these stories, and now we hardly have any storytellers here, and so a lot of our youth didn't really know that this was a thing until they came to, you know, our programming and figured out, oh hey, what is this? And we gave them the knowledge behind what this art form is and how it's important to our people. And so we're kind of reviving it a little bit with also adding those modern elements, but without making it without drifting too far from tradition. So being able to provide that you know, knowledge and pass it on to our younger generations by teaching them about the art form was pretty awesome. Pass it over to Keith.
Yeah, another highlight would be definitely hearing our Zuni youth actually practice and speak the Zuni language. My generation, I know we grew up speaking Zuni first and then learning English in the school setting. But nowadays, a lot of that is reversed, where a lot of our kids are English speakers first and then learning Zuni languages inside the classroom, which there's nothing wrong with it. But I think one of the things that we definitely see is that a lot of our youth have difficulty speaking the language because they really don't have much opportunity to practice it in a safe environment. And so one of the things we definitely wanted to do was create that environment for our youth to practice speaking the language, because it is a difficult language to speak if you if that wasn't your first language. And so one of the things we had, language teachers, we had assistants there that will help our kiddos, you know, practice words and, you know, really tell them how these words are pronounced. And I think, and a lot of times for some of our community, unfortunately, when they do practice it, a lot of them, if they do get something wrong, either they get shamed or they get laughed at. And a lot of times that discourages a lot of our kids from speaking it. And so we definitely wanted to flip that and create a safe environment to where, you know, if you do make a mistake, it's okay. It's something that is difficult and hard, but, you know, this is the way you say it correctly, and really encouraging and really focusing on that positive energy for the kids to keep learning. I think that's one of the things we definitely wanted to provide. And so seeing the kids grow, I think one of the highlights for me is watching one of our cast members. She had a really difficult line because it was kind of a tongue twister. And so I had asked her to do it, repeat her line. And then when she finally got it the very last time, you could just see that expression in her face, like, yes, I did it. I said it right. And, you know, I think we actually got that expression on her video, and we kind of left it with that. And, you know, I think a lot of those were just some of the things we definitely wanted to share with the youth and create that environment for our youth, to have that environment for them to feel safe, to want to try. And so just hearing them speak is definitely something that's important to us, because a lot of our traditions, our stories, our prayers, our day-to-day lives involves the language. And a lot of the things that we want to keep going needs the language to be intact. And so that's definitely one of our focus with this storytelling project is the kids to practice and say and speak the language. The other thing is, you know, just connecting the youth with the elders. I think that was just one of the biggest things that we emphasized and pushed for. A lot of our community now are single modular families where it's just mom, dad, and the kids. I know growing up, we used to have grandma, grandpa, auntie, uncle, mom, dad, and a whole bunch of cousins living together. But a lot of the families now are only single family homes, and they kind of miss the interaction that you will have with a grandparent or other family members around. And so just to have that intergenerational relationships built, you know, it's definitely something that's what our kids also needed. I remember at the end of our production, we had a family scene where we had a grandma, a grandpa, mom, dad, and then the grandkids. And these were all different families. All the cast members were from different families. And at the very end, they just kind of on their own just kind of became a family. And I remember our very last filming, we actually had like the grandkids teasing the grandfather like they were that was their actual grandfather. You see that interaction as if they were really related. And I think those kind of relationships that were built is definitely something that helps our community. And then, you know, something that is definitely missing. And so just to see the interaction between the elderly and the youth and everybody in between is definitely something that really brought this project together. A lot of times, you know, we have the elderlies doing their own thing and the youth doing their own thing, but to have something that brings both of them together was definitely something that was definitely one of the highlights of this project.
Thank you so much, Talia, Keith, and Tiana. Thank you for sharing your inspirational and amazing work that's happening in your community. I'm sure it's generated a lot of ideas here, especially because the activities include many aspects of culture, traditional language, and can be delivered in a safe manner. So thank you so much for sharing today.
Yes,
Moving forward.
I got stuck and wasn't able to unmute, but thank you, everybody.
Moving forward, it's my pleasure to introduce Yari Walker and Tatiana Tickner of the Alaska Native Heritage Center. They will be further introducing themselves and sharing traditional and modern ways of coping with the pandemic. Yari?
Thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation. It was amazing to listen to that and very exciting to see what your youth are doing. Again, my name is Yari. I was named after my great-grandmother, Yari. And in my culture, when you're named after somebody, my grandfather told me that the name did not belong to me, that I carry the name Yari for my ancestors. So the name belongs to my ancestors. I am just a keeper of it and I carry it. And I am the Umwat Resilience and Connection Program Manager here at the Alaska Native Heritage Center. And I'll let Tatiana introduce herself.
Nagandanini, Shishida, Izzy, Tatiana, Tiknor, Slanchi, Dinna, Kunkit, Degatana, Slanchida, Dugatnu, Shaku, Shikaya, Falanda, Edi, Shunta, Fatan, Katna, this is me, this is who I am. I'm Tatiana Tiknor, I'm Dinna, Plinkett, and Degatan. And I was born and raised here in Anchorage. And I'm the Ungwat Program Coordinator here at the Alaska Native Heritage Center. So we always like to acknowledge the land that the Heritage Center resides on. I know everyone's from all over. We just like to acknowledge that we are on the Naya people's land. This land belonged to the Alaska Native Heritage Center, this land that they are on. It belongs to the people of Eklutna, and we like to say, Chinan, thank you for letting us reside here on your land that we know as Anchorage now. Thank you. So the Alaska Native Heritage Center, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Heritage Center. Our mission and vision are: Alaska Native Heritage Center preserves and strengthens the traditions, languages, and art of Alaska's Native people through statewide collaboration, celebration, and education. And our vision is thriving Alaska Native people and cultures. Thriving Alaska Native people and cultures are respected and valued. And we're the only cultural center that caters to all Alaska Native cultures. We have various different programs like the Ungwa Resilience and Connections program, which is what we are under, our ANA iLead program, GERF, Tiomana, our Mellon grant, our summer and winter internships, and our culture boxes.
So the word Ungwat comes from the Sukpiaq people that translates into communicating how people are strengthened by a common purpose. So when I think about that word, the common purpose to me is survival. The Yuhu Mashakwe, which I'll explain a little bit later. We are a Samson Native Connections grant, and we do serve transitioning Indigenous youth between the ages of 24 years who attend Alaska Pacific University and also the University of Alaska Anchorage. We seek to reduce the impact of mental health and substance use disorders through culture, art, dance, and traditions. And I do practice traditional healing with our youth. And we reduce and respond to impact of trauma in the Alaska Native communities. So what I actually do is I enjoy and I love teaching people how to meditate and ground themselves. Meditation and grounding have so many different benefits. And long before I started practicing the type of meditation and grounding I do, my ancestors used to meditate and pray all night long until dawn. So there's many different healthy and positive benefits that are good for the emotion, mental, body, and also for the spirit. One thing that I like to talk to people about is our spirit also needs healing. So for instance, we have these mental health programs that focus on the emotion and the mental, but our ancestors long ago in the traditions that are coming back is we're beginning to focus more on the spirit too. So through meditation, it helps us with the mind, body, and spirit. And it also helps us to maintain good health, and it helps keep negative energies away, and it brings you so much joy and positive energy. And one of the things that's very important for me before I start my day is I like to meditate and pray to set my tone and my day, because I never know what kind of day I'm going to run into, or if I'm going to run into a situation where somebody is going to need traditional healing. So I have to prepare myself through meditation and grounding myself. And an Athabascan elder who once said to me that we first must be well before we help others. And ever since I heard him say that, that has stuck to me. And so that encourages me to meditate and ground myself every day before I start my day. So both practices do help reduce stresses, worries, and fears, anxieties, and depression. And I actually went through a traditional healing journey with a Native American / Mexican woman, and she taught me ancient tools that our ancestors used through meditation and grounding myself. So it does promote positive emotions, like I mentioned, such as joy, happiness, and good mood. So they are a form of connecting with your ancestors, our ancestors and creator. It is a form of prayer. So when I meditate and I ground myself, I actually, I like to call it journey. When I journey, I actually connect with my ancestors. And when I connect with my ancestors, they either have guiding messages for me or I do healing with my ancestors. And same thing with I connect with Creator. Creator teaches me one-on-one and guides me in my life. So Creator teaches me healing tools that I need to use on a daily basis. Next page. So like I mentioned, there are many different benefits for meditation. It's for the body, the mind, the spirit, and the mental, emotional. So it clears away any negative energy that you may be carrying. So for instance, if you walk into a room and you suddenly pick up pain or headache or a negative emotion and you know it doesn't belong to you, that is you picking up somebody else's negative energy. And that's why it's so important for us to take care of our mind, body, and spirit on a daily basis, because you want to make sure that you're putting out good energy. You know how some people say, I'm sending you good vibes. That means you're sending them good energy. That is a form of prayer. So in traditional times, like I mentioned, our ancestors would meditate, but they would use more of a traditional form, like I talked about, connecting with your ancestors and also connecting with Giyanak or Creator. So one of the things I learned about my ancestors was that a whaling captain and his wife would pray all night and meditate right next to the open skin boat, ang yapik, of the whaling captain. And they would meditate and pray all night until dawn. And then when it was dawn time, that's when the hunters would go out and go whale hunting. So emotional benefits of meditation can include like gaining a new perspective on stressful situations. It helps you to build skills to manage your stress. It does increase self-awareness. It helps you to focus on the now and the present. It reduces negative emotions, and it really does increase imagination and creativity. And it also increases your patience and also your tolerance. So when you ground yourself, and I'm going to teach you guys how to ground yourself, and I'm going to teach a couple of techniques. I'm going to ask everybody to put your feet flat on the floor, and you can either choose to put your hands on your lap, or you could put them over your heart side by side. You want to make sure that your back is straight and your shoulders and your lower back or your hips should be aligned together. So I'm going to teach you first a breathing technique. So when you take a breath in your nose, I want you to imagine that you are breathing in a white light, the healing white light that comes from Creator. And when this white light travels, it travels from the top of your head all the way down to the tips of your toes. And when you are taking a breath out your mouth, you want to release anything that's unwanted. It could be stresses, worries, fears, anxieties. It could be a headache or ailments. And you can do this technique as much as you need to. So go ahead and close your eyes. And I'm going to ask that you do this with intention. You have to do everything with intention. Go ahead and breathe in a healing white light that travels from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. Release. Like right now, I feel some pain on my lower back on the right-hand side, so I'm going to focus on that. Breathe in the healing white light. Release. Breathe in the healing white light. And release. So that's one technique. Another technique that I like to use is the waterfall. This waterfall comes from Creator. You're going to imagine that there's a white lotus flower at the crown of your head. Imagine that this white lotus flower opens up its petals, and you're going to ask Creator, and you can say a prayer quietly, to please send your waterfall and wash away anything that's unwanted. And again, I'm going to focus on that pain on my lower back. And go ahead and imagine this waterfall traveling through your whole entire being, your emotional, mental, physical, and your spiritual being. And allow this waterfall to travel. You can also use this technique when you have a hard time falling asleep. And I'm going to share a quick true story with you. It's very interesting. My husband sometimes has a hard time falling asleep at night, and all I have to do is whisper in his ear, waterfall. And within a minute, he falls asleep, and I do the waterfall technique on him. And I want you to go ahead and open your eyes. And you will notice that you feel much more relaxed. So those are the two techniques that I like to teach. And you can repeat this process as you wish. If I feel like I don't have enough time to meditate, and when I meditate and pray, it takes me anywhere from 10 minutes, and sometimes when I get really carried away, it takes me about 45 minutes to meditate. And when I don't have 10 minutes on the go, I do these quick techniques for about 30 seconds, maybe a minute even. Next slide, please. So you can also do the melting away. You can do the same thing when you don't have enough time to meditate. You can imagine that there's this really bright golden light that's going to travel from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. Go ahead and close your eyes. Imagine this golden light that comes from Creator. And as this light is traveling through your whole entire being, starting from the top of your head, for instance, if you have a headache, imagine this golden light melting away your headache. And go ahead and allow this golden light travel all the way to the tips of your toes. Then go ahead and open your eyes. Next slide, please. And then I remember one day I was doing a traditional healing session with one of my uncles. And when I got done doing traditional healing with him, I started to brush him off from head to toe. And as I was brushing him off and myself, my aunt told me, and I did this instinctively. I was just made to feel that I should brush myself off and brush my uncle off. My aunt told me that my ancestors, when they were done doing traditional healing, they would brush themselves off. And so in the beginning of my relationship with my husband, I would ask him to please, before you come into the house, please brush yourself off, because negative energy or spirits or bad energies can attach themselves to your physical being. So it's important to practice brushing yourself off from head to toe and also the bottoms of your feet. And after I brush myself off, sometimes I use eagle feathers. Eagles in my language, eagles are kawakpak, and eagle is one of my spirit animals. I have two spirit animals. Eagle is one of them, and the other one is the bowhead whale. So you just brush yourself off from head to toe, and you can practice this whenever you need to. Next slide, please. And Tatiana's going to go over the traditional tools with you.
Let me find mine. Okay. So I was growing up, I was raised by my grandparents, and they taught me life skills through storytelling and even going to fish camp and learning different things while going plant gathering, berry picking. And this is how I learned most of the things that I know now, and this is how I'm going to teach my son when he gets older. And I'll even teach him now. He is 1.5. And we like to tell him stories a lot, and he likes to watch movies and shows. He's grown up so fast. And one example is at fish camp when she was telling us what to do and how her grandparents taught her, and different stories about her great grandparents and how they taught her how to do these things was through storytelling. And she told me lots of stories about fish camp back when she was our age and how tough it was, because this is how they got their resources for the whole winter. And they would be at fish camp for a couple months, whereas we'd be at fish camp for a couple weeks, about 3 weeks. And yeah, just through cutting fish and seining the net, she'd had different stories in that way. And this is an example of how we would teach life skills through a virtual format. And that's just a little bit about what we're doing here right now. Thank you. And here's our contact information if you want to get in touch with us. Tara Bordakovsky is our Director of Cultural and Educational Programs. And Yari, she is our Inglewood Program Manager. Myself, I'm the Inglewood Program Coordinator. And here's our direct lines and emails if you need to get a hold of us. Thank you.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to teach you guys and present to you guys today. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the facilitators.
All right, thank you for that wonderful presentation about the Alaskan cultures and things that you've been doing during the pandemic to keep those cultural activities alive and going. So we wanted to we have about 10 minutes left. I wanted to just take a minute and open it up to all of you. We'd like to hear from you about what are some of the cultural activities you heard from our 2 grantee spotlights. You heard from me, I was telling you what was going on at my community at Blackfeet in Montana with the language classes. They also have a wellness series that they're doing there at Blackfeet Community College. So I want you just to think about things that you and your community have been able to do to help keep the culture going and cultural activities going during this time when we can't gather. And if you would just write those in the chat box, Valerie is going to monitor the chat box for us. Would like to just get a list, get a sense of what it is that you've all been doing to make your cultural activities safe. What kinds of activities have you been doing? So go ahead and write those things in the chat box.
So Ken Hoyt expressed his thanks in his language, and Colleen Vicente commented, wonderful healing ways to keep you in good spirits. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else I would like to share? Ingrid Stevens shared NTHC in Anchorage mailed 500 cultural activity kits to youth in the Lower Yukon region located in 10 school sites. That's wonderful. It's really an awesome idea. Ingrid, can you share a little bit about what were in those kits? Does anyone else want to share or contribute to the chat box? Shared, we've been able to use Zoom and distance activity kit models as well. We have been able to train drum makers without meeting up and risking exposure. That's wonderful. And Ingrid shared, included in those activity boxes are bone bead keychains and suede beaded hearts. And Tatiana of the Alaska Native Heritage Center shared that she's sending out kits as well, and they'll be working with the University of Alaska Anchorage students, college students. Well, thank you everyone for sharing the activities that you're doing in your own communities. Like we shared earlier, this webinar is being recorded, and I just wanted to share some of the related resources that we used for this webinar. So Mark, next slide, please. So if you need to go back, you can refer back to this slide in our webinar series. And also, in closing, before I turn it over to BC to wrap things up for us, I will sing us a song to close out the presentation part of our webinar. It's a Chipik song called Ayeyanga. It's a prayer song. And I will now have a moment of silence for each of you to bring to mind people, situations that you want lifted up or that you're thankful for. So I will lift those up now with the prayer song. Along with my daughter. Ayeyanga, 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 Thanks, everyone.
Awesome, Valerie. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, John, and our presenters. We really appreciate those updates on ideas for making your way through the pandemic with your program. So we really look forward to folks joining us for upcoming webinars. We have the dates there. That next one coming up, it does say suicide and prevention among LGBTQ2S Two-Spirit youth. That has changed a bit. It is more a look at a curriculum that's being used in Canada with our First Nations folks in the North about suicide prevention. You know, it certainly could be used, excuse me, used with Two-Spirit youth, but it does not actually have that focus. And then we, of course, will be looking at how our communities can support Two-Spirit youth, and we'll have a youth leadership webinar series coming up in June. So as always, we appreciate you joining us today and look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you very much. Take care.